guys, it's Kira and welcome to another video. Today I'm super excited to be sharing a birthday book haul and talking you through all of the books that I was lucky enough to be gifted for my birthday this year, which was just a couple of weeks ago. It's also super exciting because I haven't shared a book haul in general for quite some time, and that's mostly because whenever I'm buying books for myself, they always immediately make their way into a weekly vlog, which means that I never have enough books collected that I haven't already spoken to you about to do a full haul. But of course, birthdays mean that other people buy you books, and I was lucky enough to get lots of books this year, so I have a bounty to share with you and I cannot wait. So without further ado, there are lots of books to talk about, so let's get into it. First up, we do have a collection of books that some of you might have seen in my birthday vlog, because these were just so exciting that I had to feature them in a vlog as well. But I think I need to put my tea down for these ones because I think I would actually die if I dropped any tea on these books, and also they definitely require both hands. So first up, we have a collection of Jane Austen novels which Jay bought for me. These are from the 1950s. This was when these particular ones were created. These editions were printed in I think like the late 50s, maybe 58, and it was so exciting to get a vintage collection of Jane Austen novels. So within this collection we have Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, Mansfield Park, Emma, my personal favourite, Northanger Abbey and Persuasion are put into one book, and then there is also a final novel for minor works, which I feel like includes things like Sanditon and Lady Susan, which are of course her unfinished novels and things that were published posthumously. So a lot of Jane Austen to go around here, and it's just so exciting to have this beautiful vintage collection of Austen novels. I love Jane Austen, and I mean, there's no such thing, in my humble opinion, as too many Austen novels on your shelves, especially when there are like special editions like these ones. So Jay got me this from a local antique and first edition rare books specialty bookshop in York called Lucius Books, and it was just such a wonderful surprise. He did such a great job and I did not expect them at all. So very, very excited about these, and I just thought you guys might be excited as well, because I know that I'm not alone in my Jane Austen love and also in my love of old books. So very exciting thing to kick off this book haul. Okay, my cup of tea is permitted to join back in with this haul. I think I can manage all of the rest of the books one-handedly. But the next book was from my friend Em, and anyone who has gifted me a book who has a booktube channel will be linked down below, so you can go and check out all of my wonderful, wonderful friends. But next up we have this copy of Normal People by Sally Rooney, but this is actually a script version, and this was the scripts that were used for the TV adaptation of Normal People, and we all know I'm such a big fan of Sally Rooney in general, but I have to say that I think the Normal People TV show might be my favourite thing that's associated with her works, because it was just incredible. Definitely by far my favourite book to movie or TV adaptation that I've ever seen. It was just so wonderful, and this includes of course the scripts, but as well there's some like images and things from the show, and I think behind the scenes info, and I just thought it was all so beautiful because it was such an aesthetically pleasing show, and I couldn't always stand to have more Sally Rooney on my shelves. And then not a book, but still on the topic of Normal People, my wonderful friend Lucy got me this little movie poster of Normal People, which has actually I think a very similar image to what's on the front of this book, but it's like a cartoonised version of Connell and Marianne on the beach, and I just think it's so beautiful. I'm planning to get a little frame for it so that it can sit on my shelves near my Sally Rooney collection, but it was just such a beautiful and thoughtful gift, and although it's not a book, it's definitely book related, so I wanted to include it in this haul. Next up, I had two books from my friend Emma, who sent a gift note that said, "Milk is clearly the theme of your birthday gift this year," at which point I was thinking, what on earth has she bought me? But it turns out two milk themed novels, the first of which is Milkman by Anna Burns, which I don't know very much about, but I know that this won the Booker Prize, I think 2018 it did, and I was always intrigued by the cover, but for some reason just never picked it up, but I decided to add it onto my wish list at some point in the last year, and Emma gifted it to me. It does sound very interesting, but I feel like very much like a broad concept. I don't really know what direction it's going to go in. So it says on the blurb, "In this unnamed city, to be interesting is dangerous. middle sister is busy attempting to keep her mother from discovering her maybe boyfriend and to keep everyone in the dark about her encounter with Milkman. But when first brother-in-law sniffs out her trouble and rumours start to swell, middle sister becomes interesting, the last thing she ever wanted to be. To be interesting is to be noticed, and to be noticed is dangerous. So it sounds very dystopian and dark and obscure, and I think it's going to be very, very interesting. It obviously won an incredible prize, so I'm sure it's going to be a good novel. And then the other milk-themed book from Emma is Milkfed by Melissa Broder, which is a quite new novel. I think it's a new release for this year, and it sounds very, very interesting. I was in Waterstones a few weeks ago, and my friend Sarah pointed it out and said it sounded really interesting, so I picked it up and then decided to add it to my wish list straight away. The thing that really stood out to me about this book is that it is quite predominantly focused on a main character who's clearly struggling with disordered eating and is using that disordered eating as a way to cope with the issues that she's having in other aspects of her life, and obviously having dealt with disordered eating and a past of a difficult relationship with food. That's something that I always find myself drawn to in novels, but it seems like this one will also just contain a lot of general self-exploration and growth, mental health recovery, and all kinds of other interesting themes. So I'm very excited to read this one, and who knows, I might actually get to it while there's still some kind of hype around the book, which is quite a rarity for me. Next up, we have a very exciting new addition to my already expansive collection of Penguin Deluxe Classics, which are just my favourite collection of classics. They're just so beautiful, and my friend Carolyn really came through with a design that I'd never seen before. This must be a new addition to the Deluxe Classics collection, and that was Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf, which I just think is such a beautiful version of this book. It's yellow for one thing, which is definitely a win for me because yellow is my favourite colour, and it's just so beautiful, as Penguin Deluxe Classics always are. I don't know a massive amount about Mrs. Dalloway, but I do know it's probably Virginia Woolf's most famous piece of work, and in the little gift note that Carolyn sent with this book, she said that it was a favourite of Rory Gilmore and also a favourite of hers, and Rory and Carolyn are two people whose opinions in books I definitely trust, so I definitely want to get to this at some point and give it a real good try. Haven't read any Virginia Woolf for quite some time, and my experience with her is limited to just a few little pieces that I read at university. This would be the first full-on Woolf novel that I've read, and I'm very excited to give it a try, and especially because the cover is so beautiful. Next up, we have a couple of books from my friend Meg, one of which was on my wish list and the other of which was one of Meg's favourites, and she sent it to me because she thinks I'll enjoy it as well. So starting with her favourite, she sent me Under a Dancing Star by Laura Wood. Now Meg is a big fan of Laura Wood's books, and she's recommended one of her books to me before, which was A Sky Painted Gold. I absolutely loved it. I've talked about it quite a few times. I read it last summer, and it was just such a wonderful, summery, Gatsby-esque historical fiction novel, and it was really, really lovely. This is another historical fiction, and it sounds just like one that I'm going to love to read over summer, because we basically have it set in the 1930s. Our main character Bee is almost about to be married off by her parents, but she decides to have one last summer frolic in Europe and goes off to Italy with her wacky uncle, and there I think she gets involved in a summer romance that changes everything. I think it's going to be such a fun, summery, and just lovely read, and I cannot wait to get to it. And also just the book covers of Laura Wood's books always are just so bloody beautiful, so very happy to have another one of her books on my shelves. And then the book that Meg got me that was on my wish list was Saltwater by Jessica Andrews, which is a book about a girl who goes off to university, moves up from a northern town down to London, and kind of struggles to settle into university life, and then from there I think she sort of has a bit of an identity crisis, so starts kind of looking into her family history and doing a bit of digging and basically just trying to figure out whether her cultural and family background can give her more of an idea about who she is and who she's supposed to be. It sounds like a book that's all about identity, a coming of age novel, and I think it's going to be really, really beautiful. And so is the cover, which is what mainly made me want to add this to my wish list, but I'm sure it's going to be an excellent novel nonetheless. The next couple of books are from my friend Mary, who picked two incredible sounding novels. So the first one is People in Trouble by Sarah Schulman. This is set in New York City in the late 1980s, and the main theme of this novel is the AIDS epidemic. I believe that this book is told from two perspectives, or we at least have two main characters. First up there is Kate, who is a married woman. She's married to a man named Peter, but then she's also seeing our other main character Molly on the side. So they're involved in a kind of affair with each other, and Molly is a young younger lesbian who's involved in a community of people that means that she ends up going to a lot of funerals over this particular summer that the novel is set in, and is just surrounded by a lot of the loss that was indicative of this awful epidemic. And so through this sort of involvement with Molly, Kate then becomes involved in this group of people who are campaigning for rights and education around this AIDS crisis. It sounds like it's going to be a really, really interesting novel, and I'm particularly intrigued to read this one because I very recently read a memoir called All the Young Men, which was basically all about this AIDS crisis in the 1980s and about someone who basically dedicated her life to helping men in these circumstances and just sort of providing education and help and support to people who were otherwise just left to suffer and die, essentially. So it was a really harrowing and sad novel, well, memoir actually. It was like obviously a real life thing, so I'm interested to compare a like fictionalized version to the memoir that was obviously based on reality and just see whether there's any similarities, any differences, whether this one is more dramatized, and I'm just intrigued to see how they compare. But I think it's going to be a really impactful novel, and I just think it's such an important thing to learn about and just to spread more awareness of. So very excited about this one. And then the other one that Mary sent me was The Burning Girls by C.J. Tudor. I know literally nothing about this novel, but I know that I love C.J. Tudor's books. C.J. Tudor is the author of The Taking of Annie Thorne and The Chalk Men, and I just think that she creates the most incredibly layered thrillers. There is so much gore and horror within her thrillers, but then there's also the element of the fact that they're always told over two timelines. So we have a present day timeline with someone who was connected to the past timeline, and then we have a past timeline showing how these sort of events and supernatural and paranormal things have happened previously. And I just think that she uses those two timelines of past and present together so incredibly well and creates such a layered mystery that I just can never put her books down. So I was very excited to see that she brought out this new one, and I can't wait to read it and find out what this one is all about. Although I started with books that Jay picked me up, he did get me two other books, both of which are memoirs and both of which sound really, really great. So the first memoir is In the Days of Rain, which is all about a father and a daughter who were involved in a cult, and I think as the dad is either dying or has just died, the daughter reflects back on her experience of being brought up in this cult and the way that she was treated by her family, and basically just sort of like narrates everything that happened and narrates her father's experience, her own experience. And I just think it's going to be a really interesting one, because when a young person leaves a cult, I think there's always such a mix of emotions for them. They have, of course, the desire to leave, move on and start their own lives, but they also have these sort of mixed emotions of leaving behind their family and their parents who they love. And I just think there's such a mix of emotions that comes across in these memoirs about people leaving cults. I have two other great recommendations, which are Unfollow by Megan Phelps Roper, all about her leaving the Westboro Baptist Church, and then Educated by Tara Westover, all about her moving on from her very religious prepper family. And so I feel like this is going to fall into that category of having just this incredible sense of nuance as they explore what it was like to be in a cult, leave that cult and leave everything else behind, and it just sounds really, really interesting. And then the other memoir, very similar, and this one is called The World in Flames, which again is all about a young child who was brought up in a cult and then has later on left that cult, reflecting on the way that they were brought up, how this experience kind of like shaped their worldview and just all of the different circumstances that they were involved in. So both of these memoirs sound really interesting. I'm clearly on a bit of a cult kick at the moment, and I just think they're such interesting and unique personal narratives that I just can't help but be really intrigued by them. So Jay did a really great job of picking up two culty memoirs. I have two more books to share with you all, both of which were gifts from myself to myself, because I had some birthday money I wanted to spend and I thought what better to spend it on than books. So the first book was Come Again by Robert Webb, which I picked up because Robert Webb is an actor in the UK. He's a comedian and he is in a TV show which is called Peep Show that is mine and Jay's absolute favourite. It is hilarious, it is dry, it is dark, and it is such peak British comedy that I just think it's incredible. So when I saw that he had written a fiction novel, I had to pick it up immediately, and the blurb sounded super interesting. It says, all hell has broken loose in Kate Marsden's life. Her husband has died, she's lost her job, and now she's pushed away the last of her friends. Then one day she wakes up in the wrong body and the wrong year. She's 18 again, and it's her first day of university, which means today is the day that she'll meet her Luke, her future husband, for the first time. If they can fall in love again, Kate might just be able to save him the second time around. Now, I am a sucker for the do-over trope that we've got in this book. Sounds like it's going to be incredible, and I cannot wait to give it a read. And then the last book in this book haul is Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult. I have always enjoyed Jodi Picoult's books. I think that they're always really interesting. They always surround the theme of some kind of lawsuit or trial or something having happened that has brought the police and the law into the circumstances. And I always think they're just so interesting. There are often multiple perspectives, and it just means that it causes you to kind of like view things from a different perspective than maybe you would have like automatically gone for, which I just think is really interesting and powerful. This one is all about when I think a baby dies in hospital and the parents decide to sue and basically just go after the hospital for what's happened, and I'm sure that there's going to be lots of different perspectives on what happened, why it happened. I think it's going to be very, very interesting, so I'm excited to read this one because it's been quite a while since I last picked up one of her books. So there we have it. Those are all of the wonderful books that I was lucky enough to be gifted for my birthday. If you've read any of the books that I was gifted, I'd love to know what you thought of them, and if you have any recommendations for which ones you think I should read first, because it's always so exciting when you get a little bit of a TBR refresher and new books making their way to the top of your priority list, and I'd love to know your thoughts if you've read any of them. If not, let me know what is the most exciting book you've either bought or been given lately, because I'd love to hear about that as well. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.